The words landed like a slap in a quiet room. "Choose us or her," my son said, and he said it at my dining table like he was ordering takeout. My daughter sat beside him, hands clasped tight, eyes hard. The afternoon light fell across the tablecloth I saved for holidays. The roast chicken I made sat untouched. My house smelled like lemon polish and thyme. Their faces smelled like an ultimatum. I am 74. My name is Ruth Chandler. My hair is white now and cut short so it doesn't argue with me. My knees complain when the weather changes. I wear soft shoes and sweaters with deep pockets. I have paid off this house. I grew a marriage here, and I buried the man I loved 12 years ago. I am not a rich woman in the way magazines mean it, but I am not poor either. I have what my husband called enough to sleep at night. I also have a nurse named Nora Bennett, who has seen me at 3 in the morning when fear makes the walls feel close, and who never once made me feel small. "Choose us or her," Evan repeated, rolling the words like dice. He is 50 tall, with a neat beard he trims every Saturday. He wore a navy golf shirt and a watch he likes people to notice. My daughter Melissa, 47, had on a white blazer and a ring stacked with diamonds that glare when the light hits them. Across from them, 2 chairs were empty. My grandchildren had sports. I can forgive sports. I cannot forgive this tone in my own home. I looked at the chicken and then at my children. "Sit," I said. "Eat while it's hot. Then talk." Melissa didn't move. Evan leaned back. "We're not hungry," he said. "This is serious, Mom." His voice softened on the last word like it could wrap the knife it carried. "What is serious," I said, "is that the food will dry out if you let it sit." I was buying time for my heart to slow down. It did not slow. It pounded like I had walked up a hill. Melissa finally sat. She didn't pick up a fork. "We're worried," she said, every syllable sharp. "This woman, this nurse, has too much influence. You're vulnerable. We think she's after your money. We think you need to let her go." I looked at the clock. 4:08. Nora would be back by 6. She had taken my grocery list and my coupons, pushed a scarf into my hand and said, "Put this on while you rest, Mrs. Chandler. It's cold by the window." She calls me Mrs. Chandler even though I told her to call me Ruth. She has dark hair she twists into a knot and kind eyes that see pain before I name it. She came last winter after my hip surgery and stayed after the doctor said the word arrhythmia. She showed me how to breathe when the flutter in my chest made me think I was going to fall right through the floor. "I'm not vulnerable," I said. "I am old. Those are not the same thing." I poured water into their glasses because my hands needed something to do. "Nora takes care of me. She doesn't take from me." Evan slid a folder across the table, a thin smile on his mouth. "Then prove it. Fire her. We'll set you up at a nice place in Westbrook. Full staff. Activities. Transportation. We'll handle the bills. You sign here, we can move fast." He tapped the folder. "Choose us or her." I opened the folder. A glossy brochure smiled up at me. People in sweaters sat at a puzzle table under bright lights. A form sat behind the brochure. "Durable power of attorney," it said. I read slowly. The lines asked me to hand my decisions to my son and daughter. It said I was a burden dressed as an opportunity. It said I was a problem to be moved. I closed the folder and set it by the salt shaker. "Do you remember February?" I asked. "The ice storm. The power went out. The sidewalks were glass. Who stayed here while you were stuck on the interstate?" Melissa blinked. "That's not fair," she said. "We couldn't get through." I nodded. "I know. But she did." I could see that week in my head like a movie. The dark house. The pile of quilts. Nora boiling water on the gas stove for tea, her breath floating in the air, laughing when we could see it. "Look," she said. "Proof we are alive." Evan leaned forward. "Mom, we're not the enemy." He smoothed the brochure with his palm. "We're protecting you." "Are you?" I asked, turning my wedding band around my finger. "Or are you protecting what you think you will get later?" The room went still. Melissa's mouth opened, then shut. Evan's face closed the way a door closes. "We have families," Melissa said at last. "College. Mortgages. Life is expensive. We have done so much for you. So has she, I said. And she never sent me an invoice for loving me. Evan's voice hardened. Choose us or her, he said again. If you choose her, don't expect us to keep pretending. He stood. The chair legs scraped the floor. Melissa stood too, glaring at the folder like it had betrayed her by not signing itself. I love you, I said, and I said it to both of them, steady and plain. I will not fire Nora. I will not sign that paper. Sit down and eat. Or go. They went. The door shut soft. The house swallowed the sound and gave me back the kind of quiet that is not peace. I carried the chicken into the kitchen and slid it into the oven to keep warm. My legs felt made of air. I leaned on the counter and lifted my eyes to the small framed photo on the windowsill. My husband Walt, 26 in his army uniform, smiling like he knew a joke no one else did. You would have laughed, I told the glass. You would have told them to take their brochure and go jump in the lake. The thought made me smile, just a little. Then the smile dropped away. At 5:30, the front door opened and the cold came with Nora. She stamped snow off her boots on the mat and came in with 2 canvas bags hooked over her arm. They had the good oranges, she said, breathless. And I found your tea. The peppermint kind that doesn't taste like a candle. She set the bags on the counter and stopped when she saw my face. What happened? I told her. Not every sharp word, not every look. Just the bone of it, choose us or her. She listened without moving, eyes steady on mine, hands still on the grocery bag handles. When I finished, she shook her head slowly. I'm sorry, she said. You don't deserve that. She reached into the bag and pulled out a bouquet of tulips, the shy kind that still keep their heads down. For the table, she said, quiet. Because the world is not only sharp things. I set the tulips in a glass pitcher because I could not find the vase without crying. We ate chicken at the counter, standing, because sitting felt like it would let the day land too hard. After dinner she washed the dishes and I dried. We moved the way women do when they have done this 1,000 times. The kitchen hummed with small sounds that felt like stitches. You can let me go if this makes your life too hard, Nora said after the plates were stacked. I will help you find someone else. I will make a list. I will not leave you alone. She put the dish towel down and met my eyes. You don't owe me a job because I care. I am not a woman who cries easily. It takes weddings or baptisms or the bagpiper at a funeral. But a tear slid down anyway. I am not letting you go, I said. I'm letting them go. I heard myself say it and knew it was true. After she left for the night, I made tea and sat at the dining table with a yellow legal pad. I wrote 2 columns, what I know, what I need. Under what I know I wrote, my children want control, Nora wants my health, I want peace, this house is mine, my husband would tell me to be brave, I'm not confused. Under what I need I wrote, a plan, a lawyer who will listen, a way to draw a line no one can erase. I opened the drawer of the buffet and pulled out a business card I had kept for years. Karen Doyle, attorney at law. She handled Walt's retirement accounts after he died. She wore low heels and a calm face and never made me feel like I was in the way. I called the number. The receptionist answered on the second ring. Ms. Doyle's office, she sang. I gave my name. I did not tell the whole story to a stranger. I said, I need to update my will and make some decisions. It is urgent. She was kind. She gave me a slot for Friday at 10. Bring your list, she said. Ms. Doyle likes lists. I slept badly. I dreamed of a table with 2 place settings and a third chair turned face to the wall. I woke at 3 and went to the living room. The tulips had lifted their heads overnight, as if courage is contagious and flowers catch it while we sleep. I turned on the lamp and picked up the photo of Walt again. You married a stubborn woman, I told his smile. You knew that. I'm going to use it. In the morning, I called my doctor and asked for a note I could put in my file. Patient is alert, oriented, and capable of making her own decisions. He laughed and said, Ruth, you could run this office if you wanted, and promised to have it ready by Thursday. I called the credit union and asked them to put a note on my account, no information by phone to anyone, even family, without my voice and a code word. The manager, Sam Patel, said, What word do you want? I said, carnation, because Walt gave me one on our first date when he could not afford roses yet. At 9, Melissa texted, "We're coming by tonight. We need to talk." "No please. No question mark." I typed and deleted and typed again. Then I put the phone face down and called Nora instead. "Would you mind being here at 7? I asked. "I may need a witness." She said yes and did not ask for details. People who know how to help do not ask for the story before they show up with their coat on. I spent the afternoon gathering papers, deeds, bank statements, the title to the car, the letter from the doctor when my heart skipped and scared me half to death. I put them in a neat stack and slid them into a blue folder. I set the folder in my tote and put the tote by the door so I would not forget it in the morning. I wrote a note to myself and propped it against the salt. Bring IDs. Bring list. Bring backbone. At 6:30, I set the tulips in the center of the table and made a fresh pot of coffee. I put out 3 cups. Nora arrived at 7 on the dot, hair pulled back, wearing a gray sweater and clean sneakers. She took one look at me and squeezed my hand. Evan and Melissa walked in at 7:15. Evan did not take off his coat. Melissa sat. The air felt thick, like a storm that had not decided whether to rain or break open. "We're not staying long," Evan said. "We just need to make this clear. Fire her or we walk." He jerked his head at Nora like she was a coat rack. My hands went still around my cup. Nora stood a little straighter and said nothing. "That is a kind of bravery too." "I met with my lawyer this week," I said quietly. "Tomorrow we will sign what needs signing. I will decide where my things go. I will decide who speaks for me if I cannot speak. I will live in my own home. If you cannot accept that, then you have made your choice." I looked from one face to the other and felt something strong settle in my chest, like a door sliding into its frame. Evan opened his mouth. Melissa made a small sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. Nora moved her hand toward the coffee pot and then back again. The room held its breath. "Choose us or her," Melissa whispered one last time. "I choose the person who kept me alive," I said. "I choose the person who tells me the truth, who shows up, who cooks soup when I cannot stand up straight, who reads labels when my eyes are tired. I choose respect. If you want to be chosen, be that." No one spoke. The clock in the hall ticked. Somewhere outside a car door shut. They left. Nora sat in the chair they had emptied and let out a breath like she had been holding it all day. I poured us each another cup of coffee. We drank it in silence. It tasted like the end of a season. When she went home, I washed the cups and set them upside down on a towel. I checked the blue folder by the door again, as if it could decide to leave without me. I stood in the quiet and touched the back of a dining chair, the wood smooth under my palm. Then I turned off the lights and climbed the stairs, one careful step at a time, and I did not look back. In the morning, I would sign my name in the places that mattered. I would set my will like a stone. I would decide, not react. They had given me a choice. They did not expect me to choose myself. They did not expect me to choose the woman who had chosen me first. That was their mistake. I planned to teach them how expensive a mistake can be. When morning came, I was already awake before the alarm clock's red numbers blinked 6. Sleep had visited me in fragments, 10 minutes here, half an hour there, never enough to erase the images of my children's faces, stiff with anger, sharp with demands. I showered slowly, letting the hot water unknot the stiffness in my shoulders. When I brushed my short white hair, I paused in the mirror, studying the reflection. Walt used to tell me, "Ruth, your face is where your battles show." And that morning, I could see every line, every decision, every hour of pain and persistence. But behind it all, my eyes were steady. I whispered to myself, "You're still here, Ruth. Still standing." At 9:30, Nora arrived to drive me to Ms. Doyle's office. She wore her gray sweater again, hair tied in a neat bun, and brought a thermos of coffee. "You'll want this after the papers," she said with a small smile. I laughed softly, nerves twitching in my stomach, and took the cup. We drove in silence, but not uncomfortable silence, the kind where someone's presence is enough, where no words need to fill the air. Outside the car window, February's frost glazed the grass, and bare trees reached up to a pale blue sky. Ms. Doyle's office sat in an old brick building on Main Street, with ivy still clinging stubbornly to one side. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lemon oil and paper. Books lined the shelves, thick and bound in leather, and the receptionist guided us to a small conference room. Ms. Doyle came in moments later. She was in her 50s, tall, with brown hair streaked in gray and glasses that made her eyes look both sharp and kind. She shook my hand firmly. "Ruth. Good to see you again. You've made a list." I nodded and slid my yellow legal pad and blue folder across the table. She read silently, lips moving slightly as she absorbed my notes. Then she looked up. "You want your children removed as heirs and guardians of decision-making?" I swallowed, my hands trembling slightly. "Yes," I said. "They gave me a choice. They made it clear what mattered to them. It isn't me, it's what I have. I won't hand them my piece along with my estate." My voice cracked once, but I steadied it. Ms. Doyle didn't flinch. She simply nodded. "We can make this very clear, legally airtight." We spent the next hour combing through every detail. My home, my savings, my accounts, all placed into a trust that would bypass Evan and Melissa completely. The new primary beneficiary, Nora Bennett. I could see her eyes widen, and she shook her head quickly. "Ruth, you can't," but I raised my hand. "Nora, you showed up when no one else did. You cared when no one else would. This isn't about buying your kindness. It's about honoring the truth. You chose me long before I chose you." She blinked fast, her eyes glistening, but she said nothing more. Ms. Doyle leaned forward. "If you wish, we can also add charitable beneficiaries. A fund for medical support, perhaps, or community programs." That struck something inside me. Walt always wanted his life to ripple outward, to help others even in small ways. I nodded. "Yes. After Nora, I want a portion directed toward a foundation for older adults, people who face neglect or exploitation by their families. Too many go unheard." Ms. Doyle smiled faintly. "That's powerful. I'll draft it." When the last signature was in place, Ms. Doyle pressed the documents neatly together, clipped them and said, "It's done." I let out a breath I didn't know I had been holding. It was not joy that filled me but relief, like setting down a suitcase carried for too many miles. Nora reached across the table, squeezed my hand lightly, and whispered, "You didn't have to, but I'll honor it with my life." We left the office in the bright midday sun. On the sidewalk, the cold air pinched my cheeks. I felt lighter but also aware that a storm was coming. My children would learn soon enough, and their fury would be loud. But the papers were signed, the ink dry. That was a weight they could not undo. At home that evening, I warmed the soup Nora had left in my fridge and ate at the kitchen table. The tulips in the pitcher had opened wide now, their petals stretching toward the light. I set my spoon down and stared at them, thinking of how life always leans toward brightness if you let it. The phone rang just after 7. Melissa's number. I hesitated, then answered. Her voice was clipped. "We heard. A neighbor saw you at Ms. Doyle's office." My chest tightened. "And?" I asked, trying to sound calm. "And," she said, "if you've cut us out, you'll regret it. Blood is blood, Mom. You can't erase us with a signature." She hung up before I could answer. I sat in the quiet kitchen, the tulip shadows stretching across the wall. My hand shook as I set the phone down, but then I picked up my pen and wrote in my journal, "They think blood gives them rights. But respect is earned. Love is chosen. Tomorrow, I will not explain. Tomorrow, I will stand." The storm arrived on a Thursday, just after lunch, when the sky went the color of old steel and the wind made the maple out front knock against the window like a stranger. I was folding towels on the couch when my doorbell rang and kept ringing, impatient and mean. I opened the door to find Evan on my porch, jaw tight, coat unzipped like he had run from the car. Behind him, Melissa sat in the passenger seat of his SUV with her arms crossed, staring straight ahead. He didn't say hello. He pushed a sheet of paper toward me. "Sign this," he said. "Now." I didn't move. "What is it?" "An agreement," he said, voice too calm. "You reverse what you did with the lawyer, you reinstate us as power of attorney, and you remove that nurse from any access to you or your finances. This is getting out of hand, Mom." A muscle jumped in his cheek. I took the paper, stepped back into the hall, and read. It was a cooked-up list of demands, written by someone who thought big words could hide bad intentions. It said I would rescind my trust. It said I would appoint my children guardians in all matters, medical and financial. It said Nora would be banned from my property. It said I would move within 30 days to the residence they selected. It said I would pay the fees. No, I said, looking up. What do you mean, no? His voice jumped, the calm peeling off. I mean the word that has only 2 letters and still does the work of a wall, I said. No. He put his hand on the door like he wanted to force it open wider. I stepped into the frame. Evan, I said softly, you taught your daughter to ask for what she needs using her words. I am using mine. No. He stared at me, eyes hard. You're not thinking clearly. I am thinking as clearly as I ever have, I said. If you believe otherwise, take it to court. His mouth flattened. Behind him, Melissa lowered her window and called out, we already are. The next morning, Paula's office called to confirm what Melissa had thrown like a rock. My children had filed a petition questioning my capacity to manage my affairs. The words hit my chest and sat there like a weight. For a minute I couldn't speak. When I found my voice, it sounded far away. What do we do? Paula was steady. We answer with facts. Your doctor's letter is strong. I'll ask him to appear if needed. We'll present your records, your notes, your plan. We'll show the court the attempts to control you and the language they've used. This won't go the way they think. I thanked her and then sat at the kitchen table with my hands wrapped around a warm mug I could not drink. The tulips had begun to fade at the tips, curling inward. I trimmed the stems and changed the water. Small things I could control. It helped. By Saturday, the air around the house felt charged. A black sedan I didn't know idled twice across the street, once in the morning, once at dusk. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. I took pictures anyway and saved them on my phone. That evening, when Nora finished tidying the kitchen, she noticed the way my eyes kept sliding toward the front window. Talk to me, she said, drying her hands on a towel. They're trying to make me look weak, I said. Crazy. They want people to think I can't choose my own lunch without someone holding the menu. Nora leaned against the counter, face open. You are one of the clearest people I've ever met, she said. The kind who decides once and doesn't need to decide a second time. I smiled a little. Walt used to say I was stubborn. Stubborn keeps people upright in a storm, she said. Let me help. Just keep showing up, I said. That's more help than you know. She nodded and packed her bag. Before she left, she pulled a folded page from her sweater pocket. I wrote down a log of the last 6 months, she said. Times I came, medication lists, your vitals, who called, who visited, what you ate. If someone tries to say you're not managing, this will tell a different story. I took the paper, thick with her neat handwriting, and pressed it to my chest. You are a good person, Nora. I'm a nurse, she said. This is what we do. On Sunday, the pastor asked if anyone had joys or concerns. I stood and said, both, and the congregation laughed gently like they were glad I could still make a joke. I did not mention court or capacity or petitions. I simply said, please pray for families who are trying to find their way. After the service, the ladies from the quilting group hugged me a little longer than usual. Call if you need a ride anywhere, one said. Call if you need bread, said another. I nodded and swallowed the knot in my throat. Community is a net you do not feel until you fall. Monday brought paperwork, heavy and official. Paula's paralegal, a calm young man named Eli, came by with a notary stamp and a stack of forms. We sat at my dining table, the same spot where Evan had said choose. I signed affidavits. I signed acknowledgements. I signed a statement explaining, in my own words, why I had revised my will and trust, to align my estate with the people and causes that had aligned with me. Eli took copies of my journal entries and the screenshots of texts from Melissa that said things like, if you love us you'll do the right thing, and we can't keep waiting forever. He looked uncomfortable reading them, like he was walking through a room where a fight had just happened. He thanked me and left with the papers clipped neat. That afternoon, the credit union called. Ms. Chandler, the manager said, voice careful. We received 2 phone calls this morning from a man claiming to be a financial consultant for your family. He asked for balances and recent transactions. I felt the heat rise in my face. Did anyone tell him? No, he said. We declined to confirm you were a member and noted your account with the code word. He hung up fast after I asked for it. Carnation, I said. Carnation, he echoed, amused. Pretty word for a strong line. Pretty flowers are stronger than they look, I said. We both laughed, soft and tired. By Tuesday, Melissa switched from pressure to theater. A long message arrived, not to my phone but posted to a private family Facebook group where cousins and nieces and old neighbors still lingered. She wrote that she was heartbroken that I had fallen under the influence of a caregiver and was making unsafe choices. She asked for prayers for clarity. She did not use my name, but she didn't have to. The cousins did not comment. 2 old neighbors posted heart emojis because they didn't know better. I took a photo of the screen and sent it to Paula. Her reply came fast. Keep it. Useful. That night, I slept for only 2 hours. I got up at 3 and made toast and tea and read the Psalms aloud to the sleeping house. At 4, I wrote Caleb a letter. Not about money. About memory. I told him about the time his mother, at 7, tried to sell lemonade in November and how Walt set up a space heater by the card table and bought cup after cup until she made enough to feel like a tycoon. I told him about the day he was born and Walt cried in the parking lot because the world felt too big for how small his grandson was. I told him I believed he could be kind in a world that rewards something else. I sealed it and put it in the drawer by the stove. Wednesday afternoon, Paula called with a new plan. They think they're marching you toward a conservatorship hearing, she said. Let's change the scene. Instead of waiting for that, we'll schedule a formal reading of your current estate plan at my office next week. Invitations go to your children and to whomever you want present. We'll make a record. We'll show them you are not hiding. You are declaring. A will reading? I asked. I thought those were for movies. She laughed. They are. Usually. But they're also a useful stage when a family needs to hear facts with a witness and a recorder running. Who should come? I asked, thinking of faces like cards in a hand. Your children, she said. Your nurse, if you want her support. Anyone you want to hear your voice when you are clear and calm. Caleb. The name came out before I could stop it. That's up to you, Paula said gently. He's an adult. If you think his seeing the truth early will protect him later, invite him. If you think it will hurt him, we can wait. I sat with it overnight. In the morning, I wrote 3 envelopes in my careful hand. Melissa and Evan received the same sentence on heavy paper. Please attend at Doyle Law, Tuesday at 3 p.m., for a formal presentation of my estate plan and healthcare directives. Your attendance is requested and will be recorded. I did not add love. I did not add mom. Caleb's envelope held a different note. You are not required to attend. If you choose to, there will be a seat for you near me. Whatever you decide, I am proud of you. On Friday, the doctor who has seen me for 20 years squeezed me into his schedule for a capacity evaluation. He had me repeat back an address. He had me draw a clock with the hands at 11:10. He asked me to list the months backward. When I finished, he snorted softly. Ruth, if I tested half my patients like this, they'd fail and you'd pass. I'll send the report to your attorney by the end of the day. When I left the clinic, I stood in the parking lot and just breathed in the cold air until my lungs felt scrubbed. Saturday brought one more hit. A letter slid through my mail slot with no stamp, no return address. Inside was a single sentence typed on plain paper, "You'll be sorry you trusted a stranger." No signature, but I would have known the posture of those words with my eyes closed. I put the letter in a plastic sleeve and added it to the blue folder. Then I baked banana bread because sometimes the only answer to ugliness is something sweet that makes the house smell like kindness. I wrapped half the loaf in foil for Nora and kept half for me. On Sunday evening, Caleb knocked softly and poked his head in. "Grandma? You up?" He wore a hoodie and jeans, hair sticking up like he'd been pulling at it. I waved him in and set a plate with a slice of bread in front of him. He ate without speaking for a minute, then said, eyes still on the plate, "Mom says you're sick in the head." I put my hand over his. "Do I seem sick in the head to you right now?" He shook his head. "You seem like you always do. Stubborn." We both laughed, grateful for the word. "I made choices," I said. "You don't have to agree with them. But they are mine to make." He nodded. "There's a meeting Tuesday?" "There is," I said. "You can come if you want." No pressure either way. He took a long breath. I'll be there. He stood, then hesitated. Grandma, if there's yelling. You can step out, I said. You can protect yourself. That is not disloyalty. That is wisdom. He hugged me, quick and hard, and left. I sat in the quiet kitchen, the clock ticking like a steady heart. Monday, I ironed a blouse for the first time in months. Tuesday, I woke before dawn and watched the sky lighten from pewter to pearl. I pinned my short white hair with the pearl barrette Walt bought at a roadside shop on our 40th anniversary. I put on my navy skirt and my dark green cardigan because it makes me feel like a tall fir in winter, rooted. I slipped the doctor's report, the screenshots, the letters, and Nora's careful care log into the blue folder. Nora drove. We did not talk much. We did not need to. At 2:55, we rode the elevator to the third floor of the brick building on Main. Paula met us at the door of the conference room, her eyes warm and fierce. On the long table were water glasses, a recorder with a red light, and 2 neat stacks of documents. Melissa and Evan were already seated, stiff, tight-lipped. Caleb sat at the far end, hands folded, face pale but set. I took my seat, placed my folder in front of me, and folded my hands. The tulips at home would be closing by now. Here, the only flowers were the ones on my blouse, small and stubborn. Paula clicked on the recorder. The date is the 23rd, she said. Present are Ruth Chandler, her children, and invited guests. We will review the estate plan and directives. She looked at me. Ready? I nodded. My heart beat slow and strong. I lifted my chin. Let's begin, I said. The conference room smelled faintly of paper and old coffee, the kind of smell that sticks in courthouses and lawyers' offices alike. The blinds were drawn halfway, letting in slats of afternoon light that striped the polished oak table. My children sat across from me like strangers at war. Evan's tie was crooked, his face flushed. Melissa wore a sharp blazer, her lips pressed so tight they were almost white. Caleb sat near the corner, his posture small but his eyes wide, watching everything. Paula began with the will. Her voice was steady, trained for this. Per Mrs. Chandler's instructions, the estate, including property, savings and investments, has been placed in a trust with specific conditions. She glanced at me for permission to continue. I nodded. The primary beneficiary of the Chandler Trust is the Ruth Chandler Care Foundation, designed to provide scholarships for nursing students and support for elder care in the community. Melissa let out a sharp laugh, the sound cracking the room like glass. A foundation? You gave it away? To strangers? I raised my chin. Not strangers. People who show up. People who hold hands at midnight and write logs of blood pressure and meals. People who know dignity is not charity. And yes, Melissa, the nurse you despise so much is a trustee. Evan slapped the table. This is insane. You're letting her take everything from us. From your family. Family, I said softly, doesn't hold threats over your head like a leash. Family doesn't tell you to sign or starve. Family shows up when the roof leaks or when grief is heavy. Tell me, which of those have you done lately? His face reddened further. Melissa opened her mouth, but Paula lifted a hand. Let's allow the documents to speak. She flipped to the next page. Secondary beneficiaries. Certain personal items will pass to named individuals. Jewelry to Caleb, photographs and journals to the Community Historical Society, 1 quilt to each child, should they accept. Melissa's face twisted. A quilt? After everything? That's what we get. You get what you value, I said. And what you valued was not me, but what I could give. So you get exactly what's left when that is gone. The silence was sharp, broken only by the hum of the air vent. Paula's recorder light glowed red, steady as a heartbeat. Then Paula cleared her throat. Also included are records of recent harassment, text messages, social media posts, a letter delivered without signature but threatening in tone. These are entered as exhibits. Evan leaned back, crossing his arms, trying for cool but landing in sullen. So now we're criminals? No, I said. You are adults who made choices. Choices have consequences. Melissa snapped, you're senile. No court will uphold this. Paula slid a stapled report across the table. This is Dr. Klein's capacity evaluation from last Friday. It states unequivocally that Ruth Chandler is of sound mind and fully capable of making independent financial and legal decisions. That is sworn testimony. Melissa grabbed the papers, scanned them, then shoved them back across the table. Her hand shook. Evan muttered something under his breath I didn't catch, but Caleb flinched. I looked at my grandson then, really looked. He was pale, his fingers clenched together so tight the knuckles were white. Caleb, I said softly, do you have a question? He glanced at his mother, then back at me. Is it true? That you trust her more than us? His voice cracked at the last word. I swallowed, my throat tight. I trust the people who act with love, not demand it like rent. Caleb, love is not a bargain. It's a choice. And you still have the choice to live differently from your parents. His eyes glistened. Melissa hissed, don't you dare try to turn him against us. I leaned forward, voice low. I don't have to. He sees more than you think. The air thickened until even Paula looked uneasy. She cleared her throat again. The record will reflect all present have heard the directives. The trust is filed. The capacity evaluation is filed. The matter is concluded. She clicked off the recorder. Any further challenge will go to probate court, where this record will carry weight. Melissa stood so fast her chair screeched. You'll regret this, she spat. That nurse will bleed you dry, and when you're gone, people will remember how you turned your back on your own children. I stood slowly, pushing back my chair with calm. If people remember me for anything, Melissa, let it be that I did not hand my soul to greed. Evan muttered, we'll see you in court, and stalked out behind her. The slam of the conference room door echoed like thunder. For a moment, silence. Then Caleb whispered, Grandma. His voice was so small it broke something in me. I turned to him. Yes, sweetheart. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry. His eyes darted to Paula. For all of it. I reached out and squeezed his hand. It's not too late to choose who you want to be. Remember that. He nodded, wiping his eyes quickly. Then he stood and left, shoulders hunched, caught between blood and truth. When the door closed, I let out the breath I'd been holding for weeks. Nora put a hand on my shoulder. You did it, she whispered. No, I said quietly. I just began it. Because revenge, I had learned, is not always loud. Sometimes it is ink on paper, steady as law. Sometimes it is silence in the face of screaming. Sometimes it is the choice to hand your fortune to kindness instead of cruelty. The storm had broken. But the real calm, the clean kind, was still waiting. The weeks after the will reading unfolded like a series of storms followed by strange, quiet skies. Melissa and Evan tried everything. Calls, letters, even an uninvited visit to my porch one evening when the sun was setting low and gold. I stood in the doorway, Nora at my side, and listened to Melissa spit words like venom. You've destroyed this family. You've chosen a stranger over your own blood. People will talk. They'll call you crazy. I looked at her with steady eyes. Let them talk. I don't fear whispers anymore. Then I closed the door. On the other side, her fists banged twice before silence took her away. I leaned against the frame shaking, but Nora's hand was there, grounding me. By the third week, their threats shifted. A letter from a lawyer arrived, thinly veiled demands for reconsideration, talk of contesting my capacity, warnings of prolonged legal battles. Paula reviewed it and shook her head. They're throwing dust in the wind. The documents are airtight. The evaluation is solid. They can scream all they want, but the law is clear. Her calm steadied me more than she knew. Still at night, I sometimes sat awake in my quilted chair, staring at the tulips on the kitchen counter, now wilted and leaning. Memories pressed in, the Christmas mornings where Evan tore through wrapping paper, the afternoons Melissa and I baked pies together, laughter echoing off these same walls. I whispered to the dark, where did that love go? But no answer came, only the hum of the fridge and the soft shuffle of Nora's footsteps down the hall, checking if I was all right. Spring came early that year. By March, daffodils were pushing up through the soil, stubborn and bright. Nora drove me to the community center one Saturday, where the new Ruth Chandler Care Foundation held its first scholarship ceremony. 5 nursing students, each nervous and wide-eyed, stood in line holding certificates with my name printed in the corner. Their hands shook as they shook mine, their voices trembling as they said thank you. I blinked fast, my throat thick, because for the first time in years, I felt something stronger than anger, purpose. Later, I sat on the stage beside Nora as one of the students spoke about why she wanted to be a nurse. Because someone held my grandmother's hand when we couldn't, and I want to do the same for others. Her voice cracked, but the words rang clear, filling the hall like sunlight. I reached for Nora's hand then, squeezing gently, and whispered, "This is why." She nodded, tears glimmering in her eyes. At home that evening, I received another voicemail from Melissa. Her voice was strained, not angry this time, but thin, almost brittle. "Mom, we don't understand why you hate us. We just wanted security. We thought it was our right. Please call me back." I didn't. Not out of spite, but because I no longer owed them answers. My silence was my reply, firm and final. One afternoon in April, Caleb came alone. He stood at my porch holding a small pot of tulips, his hair falling into his eyes. He looked older, heavier with things he shouldn't have to carry. "Grandma," he said softly, "I don't want to be like them. I just want to sit with you." I stepped aside and let him in. We sat at the kitchen table, the tulips between us. He told me he was tired of the shouting, the demands, the endless hunger for more. He wanted to study, maybe become a teacher. He wanted peace. I listened, nodding, my heart both aching and swelling. "Then take it," I said gently. "Peace is a choice. You don't need permission from them. Just choose it." His eyes glistened, and he nodded slowly. As the months passed, the noise from Melissa and Evan faded. Their threats lost steam, their pride kept them from admitting defeat, but the silence was enough. I built a new rhythm, morning tea on the porch, afternoons spent reading or writing letters, evenings with Nora watching old movies. The air in the house felt different now, lighter, freer, no longer heavy with expectation. One Sunday morning, I stood in the garden as the sun rose, warming the earth. The daffodils swayed, the tulips bent toward the light. I whispered to Walt, as I often did, "We did it, love. We kept our dignity. We chose kindness over greed." The breeze stirred, lifting the hair from my forehead, and for a moment, I felt him there, steady as ever. My children thought they could corner me, force me to surrender my soul for their comfort. But what they didn't understand was simple: love is not owed, and inheritance is not a birthright. In the end, I chose the one who chose me, and through her, I found not just revenge but renewal. If the world remembers me for anything, let it be this: I was not erased. I was not broken. I stood, I chose, and I left behind not bitterness, but something that could grow brighter than their anger ever could.